Who are the best classic American authors that you must read? Hi there, my name is Brian Collins. Welcome to the Become a Writer Today channel. So when you think of American literature, it's got 250 plus years that you can draw upon. Now that pales in comparison when you think of great books and classic works from the United Kingdom, let's say, because America was founded in 1776. But if you think of William Shakespeare, he was writing and publishing, or perhaps people working with him were writing and publishing all the way back in the late 15 and early 1600s. That said, there are dozens of great classic American authors that you can really dive into. And in fact, when I took a creative writing class a couple of years ago, we spent a good chunk of that class learning about authors like William Faulkner. So in this video, I'm going to profile 11 classic American authors that you must read if you want to learn all about this genre. Hope you enjoy the content. If you do, hit thumbs up. And to get more video roundups of great books and authors like this, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out some of the other videos. First up, we have Mark Twain, who was born in 1835 and died in 1910. He's perhaps one of America's most famous humorists and authors. And Mark Twain is actually the pen name for his real name, Samuel Clemens. He had a really interesting life during the 19th and 20th century. He worked in the mines of Nevada, served in the Confederate Army, and even piloted a steamboat. All ideas, themes, and stories that make it into his books. In fact, he had a treasure trove of information and insights from his personal life, which he turned into books like The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and The Prince of the Pauper. Many people would say Mark Twain is the father of American literature, perhaps because he's one of the first authors to really find success after America was founded. Next up, we have the writer's author. I'm of course talking about Ernest Hemingway, who was born in 1899 and died in 1961. He's the author all writers love to read when they're looking for some great literature. He was born in Oak Park, Illinois, and when World War I broke out, he famously served as an ambulance driver, and his experiences informed many of his subsequent books. He was wounded in the line of duty and had to return home. And after the war, he worked as a journalist for years and decided to become a novelist. His first book, which I'm actually reading at the moment, is called The Sun Also Rises. Fun fact, when it came out first, it was a critical flop. Now it's widely regarded as an iconic piece of literature from the early 20th century. From there, he produced several other classic works. Some of his best known books include A Farewell to Arms, For Whom the Bell Tolls, and my favourite Ernest Hemingway book, The Old Man and the Sea. He was also a prolific short story writer, and Ernest Hemingway was the author that we all studied when I took a series of creative writing classes several years ago, because he is a master of concise and artful storytelling. Herman Melville was born in 1819 and he died in 1891. He was a poet, writer, and novelist during the 19th century, born in New York City to a merchant who did quite well for himself. But then, when his father died in 1832, the family found themselves in a dire financial situation. So Melville got a job on a merchant ship. You can see where this is going. He spent much of his life chasing whales in the ocean, and his first book was all about his experiences. That book was called Typee, and it didn't really sell that many copies. Melville would go on to produce several other books during his literary career, including some short fiction. One of these is called Bartleby the Scrivener. But his most famous book is Moby Dick, which was published in 1851. Again, it didn't really become a success until after he died. Now, I read Moby Dick a few years ago. A lot of people love Moby Dick. Personally, I found it a really difficult book to get through. I loved all of the stories and insights into life on a boat, but I found all of the scientific parts of the book much harder to get through. I guess it's a like it, love it, or hate it type of classic literature. But if you're going to read anything American, if you're going to read anything classic, then Herman Melville belongs on your list. F. Scott Fitzgerald was born in 1896 and died in 1940. He had a short life in part because he drank himself to death through alcoholism, but he's considered one of America's most famous authors. He was born into an upper class family and at first he had difficulty finding love, and he used all of his struggles to find love as inspiration for his works. In fact, he turned this inspiration into one of the greatest novels of the 1920s, This Side of Paradise. And This Side of Paradise helped him find his love, and he married Zelda, and they became a celebrity couple, a kind of a Kim Kardashian couple of the 1920s. They moved to Paris, and the following year, F. Scott Fitzgerald published his most famous work, The Great Gatsby. Unfortunately, the book received a lot of negative criticism at the time. You're sensing the theme here with these authors, but today it's regarded as one of the greatest American books ever. Now, the couple drank during much of their life together and they had a rather unhappy marriage, and Fitzgerald also suffered from mental health issues due to the book's negative criticism. They moved to Hollywood where he got a job as a scriptwriter, but then in 1940 he died of a heart attack. Today, The Great Gatsby remains F. Scott Fitzgerald's most famous work. It was turned into a film in 1974 and again in 2013 starring Leonardo DiCaprio. But actually, my favourite piece of writing by F. Scott Fitzgerald is not The Great Gatsby. It's called The Crack Up. It's a personal essay which I really loved reading and studying. Next up is another American author who had a comparatively short life. I'm talking about John Steinbeck, born in 1902, who died in 1968. He's one of the most influential writers of the 20th century. He always wanted a career in literature, and he actually studied English literature at Stanford University, but he never graduated. After leaving Stanford, he moved to New York City. He picked up various jobs and tried to make it as a writer, but he couldn't publish many of his books and stories and finally gave up and moved to California. There he published his first novel, which was called Cup of Gold. This was in 1929, and he finally found success in 1935 thanks to Tortilla Flat. He went on to write, wait for it, 33 books during his career. What a prolific author. Some of his most famous works include The Grapes of Wrath, Of Mice and Men, and East of Eden. And today, all of these are considered classics. Next up is a more contemporary American author. I'm talking about Toni Morrison, who was born in 1931 and sadly passed away only a few years ago in 2019. She was born in Ohio and graduated from Howard University, where she studied English. She went on to earn a master's degree at Cornell University and then, like many authors, got a job teaching English in Howard University and in Texas Southern University. She eventually left teaching and became the first African-American female editor at Random House, one of the largest publishing companies in the world. She published her first novel in 1970, which was called The Bluest Eye, but it was Song of Solomon, which was published in 1977, which was her breakthrough book. And it went on to win the National Book Critics Circle Award in 1978. In 1987, she published perhaps her most famous work, Beloved, which was a bestseller for 25 weeks and still continues to sell in buckets today. That book also won the Pulitzer Prize for fiction in 1988 and was turned into a movie. Jerome David Salinger, better known as J.D. Salinger, was born in 1919 and died in 2010. He's one of the most prolific authors in this list. He spent a short amount of time studying in New York University and at Columbia University. Then he devoted himself entirely to the craft of writing, and his work started showing up in periodic publications in 1940. Then in 1942, he was drafted to serve in World War II. He saw combat overseas and was present at some of the war's biggest battles, including D-Day and Battle of the Bulge, where another author on this list also featured. When he returned from the war, he picked up his writing career, and his most famous work, The Catcher in the Rye, was immediately successful. It's considered one of the classics of the 20th century, but unfortunately this book brought him much unwanted attention and caused him to become a recluse, where he continued to write in private. He published several other books, including Raise High the Roof Beam, Carpenters and Seymour. Next up on this list, we have Joseph Heller, born 1923 and died 1999, just before the start of the millennium. He was the son of Jewish immigrants who migrated to the United States from Russia. He graduated high school in 1941, picked up a job as a clerk at a local insurance agency just before World War II. Like many authors on this list, Heller served in the US Army during World War II and fought in over 60 combat missions as a pilot. After the war, he returned to the United States, received an English degree from Columbia in 1949, then he got a job as a teacher and began his writing career in earnest. His most famous book is, of course, Catch-22, but he wrote 6 other novels, not all of which performed as well as Catch-22, and he also wrote an autobiography of his life and about his experiences as a soldier during World War II. If you're not going to read Catch-22, I'd also recommend you check out Closing Time and his other book, Something Happened. Next up, we have the James Joyce of American literature. I'm talking about William Faulkner, born 1897, died 1962. He's also considered the greatest American writer of Southern literature and the Southern experience. He served in World War I, but he did not experience any combat. He wrote short stories and novels set in a fictional county in Mississippi. His most famous work is The Sound and the Fury, and he's also best known for As I Lay Dying and Go Down Moses. In his novels, William Faulkner typically wrote about topics and themes of the day, like the Ku Klux Klan, racism, and the impact of the American Civil War, as well as the Confederacy. When he wasn't writing novels, he also earned money from writing screenplays for Hollywood. He won the Nobel Prize for Fiction in 1949, and his last book was published in 1962. He died that year from a heart attack after falling from a horse a month previously. Now, William Faulkner's books are dense, they can take a little bit of time to get through, and to be honest, I find some of them quite perplexing. That's why he's considered the James Joyce of American literature, because I can tell you, you'll have the same experience if you try to read anything by Joyce. Next up, we have Kurt Vonnegut, 1922 to 2007. During his career, he wrote dozens of novels, plays, short stories, and fiction. He had a rather prolific 50-year-long career, and he was even an artist. He was born in Indianapolis and served during World War II. The Germans took him prisoner during Battle of the Bulge, and after the war, he became a reporter and wrote fiction on the side with the support of his wife. He achieved critical and commercial success after the publication of not his first, but his sixth book, which is called Slaughterhouse-Five, which was also known as The Children's Crusade and was published in 1969. At the time, it resonated with the American public because they were wrestling with the Vietnam War, and today it remains his most famous work. Now, he died in 2007 as a result of brain injuries from a fall. And he's also famous for giving lots of practical advice for writers. In fact, he has 8 different rules for writers, not all of which I'll go into in this video here because I have an article about it on the Become a Writer Today site. But the rule that resonated best with me is use the time of a stranger or a total stranger in such a way that he or she will not feel the time was wasted. In other words, entertain and captivate your readers. The final author on this list is James Baldwin, born in 1924 in Harlem, New York City, to a single mother. He experienced much hardship and poverty during his early life, and he never knew who his father was. In fact, Baldwin said about his early life, "I never had a childhood. I did not have a human identity. I was born dead." He moved to Paris at 24, attempting to find success as a writer and an artist. And there he finally began to write and publish essays and stories, including what would later become Go Tell It on a Mountain. He moved back to America after 9 years and went on to write American classics like Note of a Native Son and Giovanni's Room. And he also became a good friend to novelist Toni Morrison when he started to find success. He died of stomach cancer, sadly, in France in 1987. Those are just 11 American classic authors that you must read. Of course, there are dozens more, and it could be hours recording a video like this. But these are the 11 classic authors that have resonated best with me. Who have I left out? Let me know in the comments section below this video. If you want to get more roundups like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.